Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. I have my buddy Alan from Scotland today. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, mate. How are you?
Good. I have to tell everyone that's watching this, I am so jealous of your beard because I cannot grow a beard. I can grow, 2 weeks worth of a stubble, but never a beard. So I envy you, and you're rocking it.
Thank you. I'm just glad I don't look like a
Yeah,
hobo. It was all out the place and messy. So thankfully it's looking a bit better. So thank you. I love
you're
it.
welcome. You doing good?
I'm great, mate. How about yourself?
Good. Yeah. So before we get into our fun topic, I always like to ask my guests that come on the podcast, how did you become a Bon Jovi fan?
I've got a short version and a long version.
Give
Both
me the
answers
long
are
version. Give me the long version.
right. So both versions, the answer is my dad. Um,
Who,
so
I'm sorry, who
in
died? I'm
my
sorry.
dad,
Your dad.
my
Oh, I'm
dad,
sorry to hear
yeah.
that.
So I'm from Glasgow, and in Glasgow there is a venue called the Barrowland Ballroom, and it's quite well known worldwide. My dad and his business partner started it as a concert venue back in the 80s. So, long story short, my dad managed to blag Simple Minds to open it, offered them a huge sum of money when him and his business partner didn't have a pound between them to get them to play 3 nights, and it worked, and it became the concert venue. Many people still think it is the concert venue in Glasgow, even though we have like the Hydro, which is kind of our version of like MSG or the Sphere. And we've also got the stadiums of like Murray, get Hampden, Celtic Park, Ibrox as well, like equivalent to like MetLife and whatever. But a lot of people swear about the Barrowland Ballroom. And my dad used to book in bands like The Cult, The Damned, The Who. He used to go meet and drink with the Eurythmics, Annie Lennox. So he was very into the music scene. And what used to happen was a lot of record labels would send him tapes of bands. So he would end up getting albums of maybe on tape from like Whitesnake, maybe a couple of songs here, and then they would get a couple of maybe some up and coming bands. But what ended up happening was back in the probably about 94, around about Crossroads time, he was actually sent some copies of Crossroads. It wasn't the full version, we only had about 3 or 4 songs. And he was, I have to just add, he was actually out of the industry by the time I was born in the late 80s. And he went to work in finance, but people still sent him stuff right up until about 2000. And on it was Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive, You Give Love a Bad Name, and Keep the Faith. That was the
Straight
four
off.
songs.
Yeah.
So my dad had like Def Leppard, White Snake, he had a whole load, but the Bon Jovi ones always stuck out to me. And yeah, so I've been a Bon Jovi fan since I was about probably six. They were my second band. My first band was a band from Scotland called Runrig, who don't sing all their songs in English, they sing in Gaelic. But Bon Jovi, my second band, but they are my band. They are
Yeah.
it to me. Richie Sambora is God to me. He is the be all and end all. He's my favourite guitarist. I tried to play like him, nothing close to him, but he is it for me. And to come on this show and have to talk about Bon Jovi and Richie, it's just really exciting for me. But so yeah, that's kind of how I got into Bon Jovi, and I've managed to see him 4 times now in Scotland.
Awesome.
Not had a chance to
Awesome.
see him abroad. Hopefully, if John's voice holds up, I get a chance. Love to
Yeah.
come abroad and see them. But yeah, they've been my band, and in secondary school, playing guitar, it was always Bon Jovi stuff I played. So yeah, it's just they're the guys for me, and I just love them. Just love the whole band.
I know, I mean, just from being your friend on Twitter, I mean, we've been friends now online, what, a few years now, at
Yeah,
least since the pandemic. I know how much you love this band. And a question for you: what is your favorite Bon Jovi song? Favorite. If you could only have one song to listen to for the rest of your life, what would it be?
okay. Oh god, that's a hard one. You know, I'm going to be controversial. I'm not going to pick any of the big ones. Um,
Good man.
I think I'm going to go for one of the ones that was on the 100 million Bon Jovi fans can't be wrong. Starting all over again.
Oh man.
Love that.
I will say this till the day that I die. That song should have made "Keep the Faith." It 100% should have made that album. I love,
Yeah,
it's all about starting like them, starting fresh, new era, new management, new essentially new band in a way. Weren't just young kids anymore; they were more mature. I know I'm going off the road here on what we're about to talk about, but that song should have made the album
yeah.
100%.
And I love the both versions, the Keep the Faith version, and then also the version they use for the 100 million fans. Can't be
Yeah,
wrong. I love both. They're brilliant.
yeah. Well, buddy, I think let's get right into our topic here. We are going to talk about an album that turns 30 years old, Crossroad. The
Fantastic
first
album.
greatest hits album from the band came out in October 11th, 1994. In most countries, that's when it came out. And I know I've said this probably a million times, but this is my favorite photography era of the band. The style, their look, the photo. And we'll get into the photography in just a second, but 30 years this album has been. Can you believe that? 30 years since this album
I
came
feel,
out?
I feel old
You
thinking
know,
about that. That's what's saying.
and you mentioned your story about getting the Crossroads cassette with the four songs at least. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you my funny story how I got the album. Excuse me. Um, I was an 8-year-old kid in 2000, and the first CD that I got was Crush. And I played it all summer long that my parents got so sick and tired of hearing that album. No, we'll get you any other album, but just no more Crush. So I said, okay, well, give me another Bon Jovi album. And so they took me to the store and they said, this is when the stores had CDs and cassette tapes. And they said, we'll buy you one CD, which I think was like $15, or we'll buy you a cassette. We'll buy you two cassettes. I think cassettes were like $7 each. So two for one. So obviously I chose cassettes. So I got Crossroad. Excuse me, sorry, I'm getting over a head cold. So I picked out Crossroad and Blaze of Glory. And I picked out Crossroad solely because of how much I love the album cover. It showed the whole band. We'll get into that in a second. And I remember bringing Crossroad and Blaze of Glory home. I played Crossroad so much within the first couple of weeks that it ate the tape, you know?
Yeah.
But I figured because all I knew as a kid was Crush. And obviously, there was, the albums from the 80s and the 90s that I needed to get into. And yeah, but oh, I don't know where to begin with this. There's so much I want to say. Obviously this was the last album with Alec. Obviously this album it's a greatest hits album. It's a compilation. They advertise, I think, as 14 classic grooves. Um, the American version has Prayer 94, which we'll get into it later on, but it did not include In These Arms and Never Say Goodbye, which was included in international editions. And if you ask me, it was a crime not to put those songs on the album. It's a crime. But so back to photography, we have to talk about the photography because it is probably just some of the best photography that the band has ever done. I know Mark Weiss did some photos. Forgive me, I'm drawing a blank. I think he's Polish. I'm drawing a blank on the other gentleman who did the photography. But so the album cover was filmed or photographed at Roadside Diner in Walls Township, New Jersey.
Mm.
I got to go see that. Some friends and I, we went there one year, and I tell you what, on the album cover, it looks so spacious and big and roomy and all that. And it's actually when you're there, it's actually very tiny. It is like really hard to get around,
Mhm.
and so it's interesting how they on the album cover they make it look so big, because like right in front of where John and Richie or Richie and David is, that's the entryway. And so where
Right.
John and Alec are sitting, that's a little bar area. And so you can see how much space there is just to walk in that aisle there. But I absolutely just love this era of the band, the photography and the band's look. And sadly, like I said, it was the last time that we'd ever see Alec with the band. He did photography for the album. and he was in the Always music video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over, I know I poured my heart out here for the last couple of minutes on this. What's your overreact or your reaction with the whole album? Like your take.
Uh, it's kind of hard to not repeat what you said because it's every song is absolutely stellar.
Hmm.
Always is just such a beautifully written song.
Yeah,
The very first day I seen Bon Jovi live, they didn't play it, and there was a lot of upset people that they didn't play
yeah,
it, but they played it the second time because apparently word got back to them that a lot of upset people didn't get here,
yeah,
but always. But I just love the way it flows as well. So you come in harder, living on a prayer, you get keep the faith, and then it starts to slow down. So you
yeah,
go through this wave of emotion with the band, and I love the way it flows. And then, you know, having the international version, we didn't know about Prayer 94 until, well, for me, I actually found out Prayer 94 in the last maybe few years because the only other version of Loving the Prayer that I knew of was actually in the 100 Million Fans Can't Be Wrong,
yeah,
which is the hidden track. But the fact it just comes out big at the end and it goes old school, where it all started, back to Runaway. You know,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
phenomenal album.
I mean, I think they got all of the hits on here. I mean, they got Runaway and Now Love, everything from Slippery, New Jersey. Yeah, they everything from New Jersey. Except for Born to Be My I'm surprised Born to Be My Baby did not make it on this compilation. Living in Sin, I could understand, which I love
Mhm.
that song, but from a hit single point of view, I'm just surprised Born to Be My Baby didn't make it. Keep the Faith and Bed of Roses, those are probably the two biggest songs on Crossroad. Obviously, In These Arms was on international. So they and Blaze of Glory, which was John's song. So really, um, they did a pretty good job at putting, their greatest hits in a 10-year capsule. Um, I want to talk about the different editions. Since we're celebrating 30 years of this album, we have to talk about all the editions that have come out. So obviously in 94, they also released a VHS tape of all their music videos. And it actually included more than just the hits or what's on, like they had Miracle on there. And I don't know if they had Stranger in This Town, Richie's song on there, his video. I know Blaze of Glory was on there, Miracle. And In These Arms was featured on there. Always was put on there. Saturday Night was not because the home video came out before Saturday Night single and video came out. And then in um 2005, we got a deluxe Sound and Vision box set, which was a reissue. It was a 3-disc box set. The first CD was the remastered. First time that In These Arms Never Say Goodbye was put on it in America. The second disc was rarities and B-sides. And then the third disc was Live from London DVD, which
Mm.
we all know is a gem.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, we got a Walmart reissue on vinyl, and it had this beautiful red vinyl. I'm a vinyl collector in Bon Jovi stuff, and it's in this beautiful red vinyl. I don't know if you have it or not, but it's cool. Um, so yeah, and another fact about this album too is that it was the biggest selling polygram album that year,
Mhm.
internationally, and it sold so many copies. It won some awards, and yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was by 2019 it sold something like 8 million albums worldwide.
I
It
think more
done
than that.
probably at least, but I mean it's a phenomenal album. It also kind of surprises me that it's not done well. At the time it was quoted, I think it hadn't done more because every song is just so good and they're so well known. I kind of expected it to do more, but I'd imagine by now it will have done far more. I was quite taken aback by that. I thought it'd have been a lot higher.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How about we get into the first so obviously we're not going to talk about each song on the album,
Mhm.
but we're going to talk about the new the at the time the new tracks Always, Saturday Night, and Prayer 94. Let's get into Always because this is a such a huge gem and it's just one of the best songs, especially vocally. So Always was written by John Bon Jovi. It was released as a single in most countries in September 12th, 1994 to promote Crossroad. So the story, and you probably already know this, Alan, but for people listening, the story behind this song was that John wrote this song for a movie called Romeo Was Bleeding. And so the song is about essentially a stalker. Um, and that's what the movie's about. It's about some guy obsessed with a woman. And so John had seen a rough version of the movie, of a screening of it, and didn't like it and pulled the song from the movie and put it on a shelf. And I think that John Collender, I'm not pronouncing his last name right, but he was a producer and he had convinced John, hey, this is going to be a huge hit, and we know John's not sometimes not the greatest with picking out the hit, like Living on Our Prayer, and he convinced John, thankfully, hey, this is going to be a huge hit. So John got the band because at the time, I think the demo that was submitted for the movie was the one that's on the box set
Mhm.
on the 100 Million Bon Jovi fans can't be wrong. And I think John brought in the band. They recut it, they redid it to the version that we know, and it became the biggest selling single in their entire career. And when I said the biggest selling single, it spent I think over 6 months in the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, which I think is just incredible. I mean that's hard for a song to do.
Absolutely.
And the music, well, we'll get into the music video. Um, Before I get more into the song, I want to give you a chance. Well, what's your initial thoughts on Always?
Um, well, my love the guitar. I mean, guitar is my passion. So to hear the way the guitar is, it's got that bluesy feel with that power ballad.
Yeah,
Richie's, I mean, that's part of the reason why I love Richie so much. His guitars always sound phenomenal, and it's got a beautiful solo. I mean, and as you know, as they perform live, how Richie's adapted it and extended it, and it's just became even more epic. Especially
yeah,
when you think back to like Live in Madison Square Garden 2008. That probably steals a show, that solo, for me anyway. I think it's one of those songs where every member of the band while they're playing has their own sort of moment that they stand out. You've got Tico with that incredible intro, that bum bum, and he's in.
yeah,
David with the keyboard and the piano, it really carries the song. It's the main player through the whole song. So even the bass has got a really good walking beat to it. As I've said about Richie, and then John's lyrics, especially when he's really giving it a bit of gusto. It's just phenomenal. And I've met people that are not a fan of the band, and I've met people that love the band, but that is always the one song I've never heard a person actually go, don't like that.
yeah,
Everyone I've ever spoke to the Bon
yeah,
Jovi said, always, 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 always. And like when my wife and I get married, she wanted a lot of Harry Potter things, and one of the things from Harry Potter is always, but I kept telling them, it's Bon Jovi.
yeah,
So I was like, and I don't even I like Harry Potter, but I've read it all, but the books are far better than the movie. And I'm
yeah,
digressing here, I apologise, but I brought to bring it back to Bon Jovi because
yeah.
our first dance song was actually "Thank You for Loving Me." That's been our song because my wife and I have been together for nearly 20 years, married
Congratulations.
5.
Awesome.
Thank you. And that was our wedding song, and very few people had actually ever heard it, which is what I liked because it's not your typical normal wedding song for a first dance. So at the wedding, I would always go, always on Bon Jovi. That's
Yeah,
that's what it is, Bon Jovi,
that's
because
awesome.
everyone knows I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's funny about Always, because people, especially people who aren't diehards that don't know the story about the movie and how so the song is actually about a stalker who's so obsessed with somebody, and it's a very unhealthy romanticism. Um, and so a lot of people, like the general fans, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's our wedding song," or "That's our song," or "That's the first song." Like if you initially listen, it does sound very romantic, and so I get it. But it's like you always want to be like, well, it's not really the romantic type that you're thinking, But I do though. If you listen to the lyrics, so it really is a commitment to your, I will always love you. I'll be there till the stars don't shine, till the heavens burn, and so forth. Um, so um, let's talk about the music video because this is probably my second favorite Bon Jovi music video in their entire career. Now there's two versions. There's one of the band only, and then there's one with the storyline. And John has joked, I think it's on Backstage with Bon Jovi website, that the director, Marty Cowner, I think it was, um, he filmed it and it was like $1 million movie into a music video. And this would have actually been a really cool movie, the way that they did. But the music video was so well done. It features Jack Noseworthy, Carla Gugino, I think is her name, and then Kerry Russell and Jason Wiles, I believe. And so for people who, that's for everyone that's listening to this podcast have seen the Always music video. So I just, what's funny, when I was a kid, I thought Carla and Kerry Russell in the storyline, I thought they were mother and daughter. I don't know
Right.
why. And I thought Carla was the mother, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like her daughter really slept with her boyfriend and at the time though, I was like 8 years old, so I thought they were just kissing or something. That was like as far as cheating as you could get. um, but then I get older, I realized that they were actually just roommates or friends or whatever. But I really love, and it's funny too because all these actors have become really well off actors. And they were just starting their career with this music video, which is kind of cool. And but like I said, I just love the video. I love the storyline of it. And there's an alternate video to the storyline on the Backstage of Bon Jovi website. I think like they showed 30 extra seconds at the end of it, um, of Jack Noseworthy leaving the apartment that he set on fire.
Mhm.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on the video?
Well, I remember the first time I'd seen it, I thought that guy looks like John Bon Jovi. When people talked about the song, they always go, "It's about John Bon Jovi, isn't it?" And then I didn't know the details of the movie to the extent that you do, but I said no, it's actually based on this film, and I started to explain it. But I did love it. Funnily enough, my best friend, he was in Cuba last year, and he said, "Do you recognise this seat?" And he sent me a picture, and I was like, it's at night. I don't know what she is. He goes, "This is the street they filmed the opening scene for Always."
Oh
So when
wow.
it starts to shoot down and it goes in towards the window and he's at the window, he was in that street. He was there because he was there for the holiday for 2 weeks. Um,
Wow.
so he was like, "This is where they filmed it," because apparently there's like a wee small plaque to say this is where the Always video was filmed. So
Wow.
I thought
That
that
is
was
cool.
pretty cool. I never knew. I just thought, oh, they just filmed it and that's it. But that just shows the pull of Bon Jovi. Whereas I know America and Cuba have got their issues, but the fact that the American band came here and filmed, they had to put a plaque up about it, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I want to back up because I know you talked about it musically. I didn't. I was going to dive into that too. Musically, like you mentioned a little bit ago, the drums, that boom, 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 and then the way the keys come in. That's such a great intro. And then I think probably my favorite part is John's vocals. I mean, that is like I've always said, '90s was peak Bon Jovi. And 94, 95 was peak of that peak, especially vocally for John. And I just love how, like, in the verses, like, he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very easy going on the vocal. This Romeo is bleeding, you can't see his blood. It's nothing. It's kind of like he's telling you a story. Well, he is, but it very kind of like the tone that I'm in right now. And then, then he gets in, when I guess I'm not that good anymore, and baby, that's just me. And then, higher vocals, and he's taking, the song just goes to another dimension in that chorus. I love that build up, and then like you said, with Richie and the way that he plays that guitar solo, and it's so musically as a band, the chemistry is just phenomenal. And it would be a crime if I did this podcast and talked about Always and not mention how incredible London '95 performance was of this song. You know, So
Mhm.
that brings me to my point about how well musically and the chemistry the band had with that song. Um, on the backstage website, there's because they just put out Crossroad era on the backstage website. I don't know. Have you had a chance to look at it?
No, I haven't yet.
Really? I'm shocked.
I know, I haven't. I need to get
Oh,
around to it. I'm a busy man,
I won't
especially this week.
spoil.
I've got my friend's wedding this week, so I'm trying to get
Yeah,
ready for it. It's been an
no,
absolute nightmare.
no worries, man. I won't spoil too much for you, but I do have to say on this podcast, they have alternative lyrics. And I won't tell you all of them. I won't spoil it for you, but my favorite alternative lyrics that they put on the website, and I wrote it down here, so I'm going to read it off. It's if I said that I was sorry, would it matter anyway? If the devil made an offer, there's no price I wouldn't pay. I'd love to see your long hair shining, or to see your pretty smile. Maybe taste your whiskey kisses when we go to bed at night. I hope that we get a demo of him. Maybe there isn't any demos of him singing those lines, but I can just see it. I could hear it in my him singing those lines, you know. And obviously we got similar lines to, there's no price that I won't pay to say these words to you, or the long hair, what I'd give to run my fingers through your hair, So I can see how those lyrics morphed into the lyrics that we know it
Mhm.
as. But is there anything else that you want to say about Always before we move on?
No, just that those lyrics, hearing them, it's as we obviously we know the background. It's that borderline of love and creepiness of a stalker, and John's found that very thin line there on that. It's just, where it just fits the song perfectly. And again, you can understand where we know there's a background story, but you can understand where some people think, oh, it's a beautiful love song. He's just found that sweet spot in that. Very,
Yeah,
very, that's very interesting. I mean, see, when you were saying it, I didn't hear you saying it. I heard John singing it. Even though I've never heard it, but
yeah,
that's what in my head. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? I know you're saying it, but I'm hearing John actually sing it in the time of always.
yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, and just like when I was reading those lyrics, I just could picture John saying those lines and stuff. So the next one we're gonna get into is Someday I'll Be Saturday Night. It was the second single released in February 5th, 1995, written by John Ritchie and Desmond Child, produced by Peter Collins, which we know did These Days. Now, John has said many times that he actually wanted Saturday Night to be on These Days. And which it would have really fit that album. We'll talk about Meaning here in a second. But I don't know I don't know if it was Richie or if it was someone in the record company, but they convinced him to keep it on Crossroad as a second single. And we know that Saturday Night got, I mean, it was a hit, but it was shadowed by Always. Always was the biggest selling
Mhm.
single, and it kind of shadowed Saturday Night. Um, so I think in a way it should have been on um these days, because for me, the song is all about facing adversity and having optimism, having that optimism through the really tough times. um just being down on your luck, having faith in yourself, and know that there's better days ahead. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but that's okay. But I ain't going down, I'm going to find a way. So basically is these next, today or tomorrow may not be good, but you know what? Eventually, I'm gonna get there. It's gonna get better. So, and that's what These Days album is essentially about. It's that misery loves company, but let's find the end of the tunnel together. Let's find hope, and let's not give up. And I think for a lot of people, especially for me, we relate to that album so much, and I think that's what makes this song so popular in the fandom is that we'll get through it. It's definitely a down on your luck song, but it's a we'll get through it
Yes.
together. What's your take on this song?
Totally agree. It's one of these songs that I use that when I need to kick up the backside to kind of snap out of, when life gets hard or you're in a tough situation and you need to try and find a way out. That's the song I go to. Because the lyrics are very profound, they're very sad as well, but it's almost like, especially just the intro. The intro doesn't seem like it suits the lyrics, but it actually does because it's quite a major melody. But the song turns into sort of minor, and it becomes a wee bit more sadder. But then it jumps up again, and it really just it's beautifully done. And that's where Johnny Ritchie's magic was when he started writing, collaborating
Yeah,
and writing. And yeah, it's one of those songs. I know I'm near the end, but I just need that kick up the backside to snap out my mood or think, "Oh, do you know what, there could be worse. There's worse people out there, whatever it may be." That's the song that usually does it for me and gets me up and
yeah,
gets me on with my day. And also just as well, it's one of those songs that you don't. It's a again. I don't proclaim to be a great guitarist. I'm nothing close to Richie. But like, she just picking up a guitar, just strumming along to it. Really nice. It's just lovely. Just to, don't have to do the intro. Don't have to do the solos. Just pick up and strum. It's really nice just to go and do that, and you do
yeah.
feel good after when you've done it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are days where I'm having a bad, and I'll go grab my guitar and I'll just start strumming it or playing with it or playing a song that I'm feeling or loving, and it's therapeutic. I also want to talk about in the song the main characters that John introduces. There's Jim and Billie Jean. So we're 10 years into a career, and we're so used to Tommy and Gina. But now we have two new characters that kind of tell a different story of what they're going through. So, you have Jim who's struggling to find a job and, he's sleeping in his car. Billie Jean, who's a 16-year-old girl being sexually abused by her stepfather. And she becomes a homeless 16-year-old prostitute. And there's lines in that song. And if you really think about it, they're really heavy hitting. Street life ain't much better, but at least I'm getting paid. So in other
Yeah.
words, I could stay at home and get raped and not get paid, or get out there and be a prostitute, get paid for it. And so like her self-esteem is so low and she's just trying to survive. I mean, it's really heartbreaking to think of that, in the story. But I mean,
Very
that's,
dark.
but just like the music video, it just shows people who down on their luck, having a hard time and survival. Um, but like I said earlier, it's a song that we all relate to sometimes because there's days where we don't have belief that we're gonna make it to see tomorrow. We just want to throw in the towel and just give up. But somewhere within yourself, you find that optimism and say, no, there are better days ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's definitely a really good song. And I tell you what, personal experience, when I had really bad days, especially when I was younger, now my mindset, my mental attitude is so much better. But years and years ago, when I was kind of going through like depression and all that stuff, this song would pick me up. And one part that really picked me up, it wasn't necessarily just the lyrics, but it was just that, hey, 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 man, I'm gonna live my life. Just that. I don't know why, but just the way that John would deliver the hey, hey, would pick me up. And so it shows you how powerful music can be.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. It's almost like a verbal shake. It's almost like he's grabbing me around the shake going, hey, hey, things are going to improve. And that's what it is, really. And I totally agree with you. Absolutely 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. So this wasn't a single, but it was an added version on the US album.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm getting over a head cold, and sometimes I phlegm up here. So Prayer 94, on the American edition. And so originally, I don't know if you probably already know this, Alan, but the idea was that so in 1983, when Runaway was recorded, it was John without the band. Obviously, David was on there, but it wasn't Richie, it wasn't Tico, it wasn't Alec. And so 94, they were going to re-record Runaway and call it Runaway 94 with the whole band, Richie, John, David, Tico, Alec. But then that idea got scrapped, and they did, because obviously the story about Prayer and Wanted and at the MTV Video Awards acoustic, and so they did an acoustic version of Prayer 94, which is phenomenal. I love the vocals on it, and it's a I don't know why it didn't get released in international editions, only the American edition.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about it till maybe a few years ago because, as I said earlier, the only other version I knew of Living on a Prayer out with This Left Feels Right is the hidden track on the 100 Million Fans Can't Be Wrong. So it's a very different take, and it was a a version that I actually struggled at first to actually enjoy because like Prayers is such a massive anthem. It's so,
Mhm.
I mean, like Kid Rocky said, you can't go into a bar anywhere in the world without saying "Living on a Prayer." Everyone can sing it word for
Yeah.
word. You know, the whole place goes up, and then you're not really hearing it that way. But it is one of these songs. It's a slow burner to me. It grows on you, and you know, Rich guitar playing, very different type of soul. The way it does grow, and the thing is, that's what I love about music. You can not everyone hears the song the same way, and to have those different versions or thought process come through and have the different ideas and the different like one of the best examples is probably yesterday most recorded song in history. But look how many different versions and some are more upbeat, some are more slow, some are a
Yeah.
different time signature. There's a lot of changes to it, and that's the way I had to try and rethink about this when it came to listening to this. And I do really like it. I mean, I won't lie, out of the four, it would probably be third or fourth. The four versions, it's not my favourite. Obviously, I just don't think you can beat the original. But it's not in any way it's a poor song. It's still a very good song. It's just it takes a bit of time to rewire your brain and to understand
Mhm.
this is it from a different perspective that possibly somebody else might be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. What's your favorite song in this whole album though?
Oh, Jerry, you're asking these horrible questions.
Mhm.
Uh,
Your favorite
I've I've got two for two different reasons. I can't split them. It's either Wanted Dead or Alive, or You Give Love a Bad Name.
Okay.
You Give Love a Bad Name was the very first Bon Jovi song I ever learned to play, and just that riff, the way Richie hits it, and the palm muting, and the big guitar, and the whammy solos and stuff. I just thought
Oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna be
I
able to play
love that.
that, and then we actually see that it's not as technically challenging as you thought it is, but that makes it even more exciting, better because you're like, I can actually play like Richie. This is great. But also Wanted Dead or Alive because that's my wife's favourite Bon Jovi song, and her parents aren't the biggest of Bon Jovi fans, but they do like them. But the other reason it's my favourite is I got an acoustic years ago, and I was messing about in it, and I started playing Wanted Dead or Alive, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, recorded me without me knowing. And sent it to her mum and dad and went, he's showing off. This is him messing about. And I didn't play it perfectly, but I played it well enough that unless you were a diehard Bon Jovi fan, you probably would have noticed I was a wee bit off. Somebody who was maybe a casual fan wouldn't have noticed. That's now my mother-in-law's ringtone for her phone and has been for the last 15 years.
Wow. That's a
So that's why I absolutely love the two of them. I can't really separate them.
yeah, that's all right. Anyway, buddy, thank you for taking the time to come on and do an episode about Crossroad. I knew you'd bring your A game, your energy, your excitement, and it's been a great chat. Was there anything else that you wanted to say before we get off?
Just thank you very much for having me on. I've learned a lot about the band. I thought I knew a lot about the band before I got in touch with yourself and getting to know you. I
Yeah,
thought at one point I had every single song they ever had, I never released. Now I realise I'm nowhere close. But I've loved watching you on social media and getting to see things that I didn't know about, performances I didn't know about, and whatever. And it's been a really joyful learning experience. And obviously, you're very positive, and I love the culture you're bringing and introducing people. And I've spoken to a few other people that follow you and have had chats and things like that. And as far as I'm concerned, you're the reason, or part of the reason anyway, that Richie retweeted my tweet, which absolutely made my
yeah,
life. That was
yeah,
like the best thing ever. My wife just couldn't believe it. Like I was walking about like with a coat hanger in my mouth, just couldn't stop smiling. It was
yeah.
fantastic. So
You
again,
deserve
thank
it.
you for everything you do, and obviously thank you for having me on. I've absolutely loved this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for all the nice things that you said. I really appreciate that. And I just want to say we became friends, I think, during the pandemic. So and I remember we've had private chats. We've just back and forth online. I always love talking to you because you have so much energy, love, and excitement for this band just as much as I do. And I just wanted you to know that I appreciate you and thank you for coming on today.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Let me end the recording, stay on just so I know that it saves. And thanks again, buddy.
No problem.